here. Today you're following along on a little back workout. So today is back day number 1. So we do 2 back days. This one is going to be more like rowing focus, thickness focus. So it's actually, I prefer personally, we do a lot of barbell compound movements, not a whole lot of machines. I really think it helps develop the whole back thickness, especially like the erectors, the middle back, just from that stabilization. So, you know, I do use a lot of machines, especially for like legs and that kind of stuff, but back, I really find I got a really good response with barbell stuff, dumbbell stuff, just like I said, because the back is such a big muscle group that you're getting like some of that secondary like targeting muscles just from doing like the free barbell and stuff, and you're not so supported. I mean, if you have issues with your lower back, which a lot of people do, I've had that issue too, then obviously you want to use something a little bit more with stability like a machine. But as you'll see us go through, we're going to use a little bit more free weights today, just like I said, just to target that whole back. So if we're doing a row or whatever, it might be targeting like the upper back, but you're going to get also that secondary stabilization work just from, you know, supporting yourself on those row movements. So follow along today and you'll see how you know, the thickness.
Let's run away.
Alright, so first we started out with just a reverse grip pull down. So no matter what I have planned for my back day, I always start with a pull down or a pull up. So what that helps is sort of, you know, stretch the spine out, stretch the lower back, warm everything up before you get into those heavy compound movements. Just keeps everything a little bit safer, and by the time you get to like rows and stuff, you're gonna be a little looser. It's just a good all-around movement to start with, you know, just to get everything firing, feel everything out, getting everything nice and warm. And like I always sort of stay with the reverse grip for pull downs, just feel really good isolation in my lats. So you get nice and pumped, and then you're ready to move on to the heavy stuff. We move on to the traditional barbell row. For me, it really targets my whole back very well. I really like this. It's sort of hit or miss. I think either people really like it or they don't. What I found works for me is I stay really strict. I try not to move any kind of hip movement or sway or use any kind of body English here. I think of myself as I'm a machine, and I want to look at the same sort of like movement pattern I would as if I was using a machine. So I stay locked in and really just try to drive the elbows back, bring your shoulders back a little bit to help squeeze the back, get a little more range of motion out that way. So I really only worked up to 3 plates a side, which is actually really heavy if you stay super strict. So a little story was, I used to be able to row like 4 plates a side like 3 or 4 years ago, but I wasn't really getting anything out of my back development. So I went back and, you know, revisited, you know, what I was doing for back, and I started incorporating much stricter form, really getting locked in, and not worrying so much about the weight. Still progressively getting stronger, but now with that new found strict form, you know. So I started out with 2 plates of rowing, very, very strict, felt it in my whole back, you know, top to bottom, and then slowly progressively got stronger to like 3 plates for 10. So when I talk about like really strict form, it's like progressive overload is still in mind, but now you're just implementing with that new sort of style of a stricter form and really focusing on contracting and feeling the whole muscle throughout the whole movement. So barbell rows are definitely one of my favorites for myself. I had they probably are my favorite as far as developing my whole back. But like I said, you gotta find out what works for you, as some people are not really, the mechanics don't really allow them to be a great exercise, so you gotta sort of figure out, is it a great exercise for me or is it not, and try different methods of using that exercise before you cancel it out as not a good exercise.
Yeah, knows that I'm a dog. They don't want it, yeah, they scared of what I know. Told you the budget, yeah, I gotta get my own. Shout out my bros, this right here deserves a toast, yeah. A lot of people back home on my back and they know. Trying to get on my line, cause the people I know. Manifest this here, 7+ on the ropes. They ain't doing this shit, tripping over my flows. I'm on the way, tell them my
next movement was a one-arm TBar row. So I actually got these from Sean Clarita. A lot of things, I watch his videos as well, so shout out to Sean. But he has a little attachment you can get on Amazon for a one-arm TBar row you'll see in the video. So I saw that from Sean's video, so those it works amazing. And very hard, this is a very hard back day because it's cardiovascular taxing, as you'll see with the barbell row, the TBar row, that kind of stuff. So it's good in that regard too, because you want to be able to keep in cardiovascular shape even in the height of your off season, in my opinion, just so you can train harder, and it's just healthier overall. So we just did pretty much worked our way up to a heavy top set, and that was pretty much it there. Just because I got up to 25 plates rowing, so the 4 was still, I consider like a working set. It just wasn't my top set, so there was still some of that in there, so I didn't really feel like it was necessary to do a back off there. But yeah, just any one-arm movement is really good to develop your back. So I think either back day you have, always having one kind of unilateral movement in there is really good, maybe even 2. So it depends if you're trying to hit your lats or the middle back or whatever. So, but yeah, those are definitely underrated movement, I would say. So like I said, really taxing, but really got to target the whole back, lower back, your lats, your center trap, your teres, all that kind of good stuff. I felt it all within my whole back. So the sequence too that I set up is that for a reason. I didn't just throw exercises in place, just however. I put them there for a reason. So, I really like the sequence of, doing a pull down or a pull up first. Like I said, get all the blood in there, warm up, and then you hit the barbell row, which is probably one of your most taxing movements. And for me, like I said, it's my favorite movement for connection wise. So that's why I put it second. And then you put another very hard movement right after that, so a TBar row or one-arm TBar row, and then you'll see next we move on to dumbbell rows in a fixed position. So as it gets, now we got the really hard stuff out of the way, so as we continue on it'll be a little bit easier, not quite as taxing cardiovascular wise.
Manifest this here, 7+ on the ropes. They ain't doing this shit, tripping over my flows. Yeah. Shawty loves it, yeah, loves that I'm a goat. Yeah.
Alright, so next we move on to we use the incline bench for a dumbbell row setup, so that way we're in a fixed position. So the 2 other exercises before that, like I said, it's like free barbell, freestanding. So you're getting a little bit more stabilization in there, working the lower back, the mid back, secondary. Here we're in a fixed position. So for me, I'm really trying to focus on the upper back, upper shelf there on the back side. So this helps me concentrate a little bit more on that instead of hitting a little bit of everything. It's a little bit more of a direct focus. And it's a little easier because those first 2 movements are really, hard, take a lot of energy out of you, expenditure. So this way, now we're going to a couple other row movements. They're gonna be a little bit easier, not quite as much output. So, that movement feels really good for me. Been doing it for a while. I can really feel it, that upper back, mid-trap, that kind of area. And like, you can honestly get, the tricky part is you can get heavier with those dumbbells. I went up to 100s, but once you start getting to a point, it's hard to gauge, where you lie at, meaning like, so with the dumbbells, it's easy to start shortening range of motion and you feel like you're still doing the same thing. So like with dumbbells, you could, the first set, your warm-up set, if your elbows are, ending here, and then on your top set, your elbow is ending here, that's obviously a drastic difference as far as range of motion. So you want to do your best to progressively get stronger on that movement, but also not keep shortening the range of motion at a cost of strength, because that way you're not really necessarily progressively getting stronger. You're just shortening that range of motion to make it slightly easier so you can increase the weight.
Yeah. Shawty loves it, loves that I'm a dog. They don't want it, they scared of what I know. Told you the budget, I gotta get my own. Shout out my bros, this right here deserves a toast, A lot of people back home on my back and they know. Trying to get on my line, cause the people I know. Manifest this year, 7+ on the ropes. They ain't doing this shit, tripping over my flows. I'm on the way, tell them I don't play. I'm on the move, trying to get my pay. I might just move on and watch and pray. I'm on the way, I'm on my way. Manifest this year, 7+ on the ropes. They ain't doing this shit, tripping over my flows. Shawty loves it, loves that I'm a goat.
So next we did the DY hammer strength low row. So I really like this piece. It's weird because I feel like if you go too heavy on it though, or at least for myself, like I sort of lose that connection. So I usually place this exercise, which I really like, but usually at the end because I can go a little bit lighter and just really get a nice squeeze and get my elbows all the way back. The problem is once I start getting over, like I could probably throw a lot more plates on. I've seen guys do like 3 or 4 plates on these, but the range of motion on the elbow drive is limited. So meaning like when I'm doing 2 plates, you'll see my elbows are pretty far back. So I'm getting a much further contraction, better activation throughout my whole back. So when I start adding plates, what happens is, I just discussed this on the other exercise, so you'll see a trend here with back, Say I throw 3 plates on a side, it's like I start here and I'm like ending here. Whereas when I started on the 2 plates, my elbows were here, so there's way more activation here than here, you know what I'm saying? So you gotta know when to sort of, I think, go heavy and light. Some people, will get great activation. I know Dusty Hanshaw talks about this on back. He can just throw the movements around, and that's how he grows with his back. Guys like myself, I had a weaker back when I started, and I used to throw the weight around, and it didn't respond. So I had to sort of do the opposite of what Dusty did to get a response. But Dusty also says he trains like that with legs, very slow, very intent focused as far as targeting the muscle. Slow, negative, really focusing on the movement rather than the load. So it's really finding what works for you. So like Dusty, can sling around the rows and grow, whereas myself and probably other guys that have a weaker back to begin with will have to be a little bit more creative, find the, exercises that work and you respond to. And also, probably getting a lot stricter on your form, focusing on that elbow drive, getting really deep, shoulder blades coming back a little bit, chest up, to get a maximum contraction, maximum activation. at East Coast Muscle down Southern New Hampshire. Yeah, it's really good. I mean, like I said, it's sort of basic, but it's been working for me for years. I feel like my back has really grown the past couple of years. Obviously, it could be better. I'm still working on that. I think the thickness. So this day, has been really staple for me because I always think my back has been pretty thick, pretty developed. It's just sort of getting the shape to the back is more my priority now. So this one day is sort of what's been working for me. Now I use that second day, which is really where I'm trying to improve the back shots, which is more like the lat focus day. So like I said, start out with that one, pull down movement, get everything warmed up, and then go into heavy rows, barbell row, TBar row, or one arm TBar row. Just those I really think are the staple to develop a well developed back top to bottom. So, as myself, I'm very particular, or take notes on everything. So what I've noticed today in a lot of bodybuilding, you'll notice a lot of guys in bodybuilding right now don't really have a great developed lower back. You'll see a lot of guys on the pro stage, they have a pretty decent developed upper back, but there's not much on the lower or mid back. I think that's because a lot of guys are relying on machines a lot, personal opinion. So, when you get the barbell row and the TBar rows and that kind of stuff, like I said earlier, you're really building that stabilizer muscles in the lower erectors, mid erectors. So that way, top to bottom, you're complete. A lot of guys have the top, and then you go below, and then there's not really much there. I mean, not to pick on him, but I can think of our current Olympia champion, Mr. Big Ramy. He doesn't really have a great lower back. And I know he trains at some really, really nice gyms, so I got to assume that he's probably using a lot of machines, just because that's, he's got really nice pieces there. So the only problem I find there, like I said, you start to miss a little bit of that back, and you're not quite as complete as we would like as a bodybuilder. So yeah, try this out. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment, like, subscribe. Try to help me grow this YouTube page, because it'll keep me going to want to do it more. It's definitely hard sometimes to keep it going consistently, just because life is busy and that kind of stuff. But if you guys, want to see more, the more comments, the more subscribers, that kind of stuff drives me to keep doing it, keep putting info out there. So appreciate you guys following along. Thanks.